As a financial analyst, I have always been thorough and attentive to details. My routine involved reviewing reports, analyzing trends, and ensuring everything was in order to present to our investors. That night, I was finishing up a quarterly report when something caught my eye. The numbers just didn't make sense. Revenues were wildly inflated, and operating expenses seemed suddenly reduced. This can't be right, I muttered to myself, rubbing my tired eyes. I decided to review the previous reports to see if I could find any patterns. With each page I turned, the discrepancies became more evident. The manipulations were not isolated, they appeared to be part of a well-designed scheme to present a much more favorable financial picture than reality. The next day, I called my teammate, Lisa, to look at the spreadsheets. "Lisa, can you run these numbers for me?" "Something's not right here," I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Lisa frowned as she reviewed the data. "Wow, Emily, that's really weird. It looks like someone is trying to make it seem like we're more profitable than we really are." I knew I would need to investigate further, but the idea that Michael Carter, my boss, might be behind this made me uneasy. Michael has always been seen as a charismatic leader, someone who inspires trust and respect. The possibility that he was involved in something so dirty was disturbing. I spent the next few weeks immersed in silent investigation. Increasingly, the data pointed to intentional manipulation. I was able to access internal emails, old reports, and even some conversations that suggested orders came from the top. One night, while reviewing yet another batch of documents, my phone rang. It was Jeremy Brooks, my childhood friend who I hadn't seen in years. "Emily. How long has it been? How are you?" he exclaimed, with that infectious enthusiasm I always remembered. "Jeremy, I'm fine, but I need your help with something serious. Can we meet?" I asked, trying to keep the urgency out of my voice. We met at a low-key cafe in Brooklyn. I told him everything I had discovered and showed him some of the evidence I had managed to gather. "That's big, Emily. Do you know what you're getting into?" he asked, concern evident on his face. "I know, Jeremy. But I can't just ignore it. Michael is deceiving investors, employees, everyone. I need hard evidence to expose this fraud, and that's where you come in. I need you to help me hack into the company's systems and find more evidence." Jeremy hesitated for a moment, and I could see the internal battle in his eyes. He had left his illegal activities behind and was trying to live a more righteous life. "I don't know, Emily. This could end very badly for all of us. Please, Jeremy. If you don't do it for me, do it for the sake of everyone who is being scammed. We need to stop Michael before he causes more damage." After a long silence, he finally nodded. "All right, I'll help you. But we need to be extremely careful." From that moment on, we began a silent and secret partnership. As I continued my day job at the company, Jeremy began hacking into the systems, looking for more evidence. Each new discovery increased my conviction, but also brought a new level of risk. With each passing day, the urgency to expose the truth grew. I knew we were dealing with something much bigger than we imagined and that the consequences could be devastating. However, the determination to do the right thing drove me to keep going, no matter how dangerous it was. When I realized I couldn't face this situation alone, I remembered Jeremy Brooks, a childhood friend who had become a skilled hacker. Despite his past involvement in illegal activities, he had decided to change his life. However, I knew his expertise would be crucial in unmasking Michael Carter. I called Jeremy one Saturday afternoon. The line rang 3 times before he answered. "Emily? How much time?" he said, surprised. "Hi, Jeremy. We need to talk." "I'm serious," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We arranged to meet at a discreet cafe in Brooklyn, away from the prying eyes of Manhattan. When I arrived, Jeremy was already there, with his laptop open and a worried expression on his face. "So, what is this about?" he asked, straight to the point. I explained the entire situation, from the first discrepancies I noticed in the financial reports to the certainty that Michael Carter was manipulating the numbers to attract investors. As I spoke, I saw Jeremy's expression change from curiosity to seriousness. "Emily, do you have any idea how much trouble you're getting into?" he asked, after a long silence. "I have. But someone needs to do something. And I trust you to help me," I replied, trying to convey the security that I myself hadn't yet completely felt. Jeremy sighed and looked at his laptop, as if pondering the implications of what he was about to do. "All good. I'm in. But let's do this right. We need to be careful and make sure no one gets suspicious until we have solid proof," he said finally. Over the next few days, Jeremy began secretly hacking into the company's systems. It was a delicate operation, any slip could expose us. But Jeremy was meticulous and knew exactly where to look. One night, he called me to his house. As I entered, I saw computer screens everywhere, showing lines of code and financial graphs. "I managed to access Michael Carter's emails," Jeremy said, pointing to one of the screens. "Look at this." I got closer and started reading the messages. It was clear evidence that Carter was manipulating financial results and exchanging information with accomplices to deceive investors. "That's more than enough to start an investigation," I commented, feeling a mixture of relief and tension. "That's not all yet," Jeremy said. "I'm trying to access private financial records. If we can achieve this, we will have definitive proof." We spent the next few weeks working together, me at the company during the day, keeping up appearances, and Jeremy at night, hacking and collecting data. The tension was palpable, any mistake could be disastrous. "Emily, I'm almost there. One more night and I think I can access everything," Jeremy said one night, as I was reviewing more compromising emails. "Careful, Jeremy. We can't be discovered now," I warned, feeling the weight of responsibility. Finally, one morning, Jeremy got the access we needed. He called me immediately, his voice shaking with excitement. "I did it, Emily. We have everything," he said. I rushed to his house, and when I arrived, I saw that he had actually gotten everything: financial records, private conversations, emails. It was definitive proof against Michael Carter. "Jeremy, you are a genius," I exclaimed, hugging him. "Now it's up to you, Emily. Take this to anyone who can do something," he replied, still panting with adrenaline. With the evidence in hand, we knew the next step would be crucial. We were closer to exposing the truth, but we were also taking more risks than ever before. However, partnering with Jeremy gave me the confidence to move forward. Together, we were ready to face any obstacle and reveal the true face of Michael Carter. As we progressed in collecting the evidence, I began to feel the unbearable weight of the moral dilemmas that surrounded me. I had always admired Michael Carter for his leadership skills and charisma, but now that admiration was quickly turning into disgust. With each new piece of evidence Jeremy and I found, my determination grew, but so did my fears. I clearly remember one night sitting in the living room of my apartment, my laptop open in front of me, with Jeremy on the other end. "Jeremy, this is getting more and more complicated," I blurted out, while looking at the encrypted files he had managed to hack. "I know, Emily, but we're on the right track. We have to continue." Jeremy replied in a firm voice, but I could also hear a touch of concern. The thought of sacrificing my career and personal security tormented me. I knew that by exposing the truth, I could lose everything I had achieved. Furthermore, the pressure within the company was increasing day by day. Michael seemed to suspect something was wrong, and to maintain the facade of normalcy, I needed to be extremely careful. "Do you think they distrust me?" I asked Jeremy, trying to remain calm. "I don't know, Emily. But we have to be discreet. One false move and everything could go down the drain." Inside the company, the tension was palpable. Michael began holding emergency meetings frequently, and whenever I was present, I felt his eyes fixed on me, as if trying to read my thoughts. This only increased my anxiety. One morning, while having coffee in the company's pantry, I was approached by Lisa, a colleague from the marketing department. "Emily, you seem so tense lately. Everything is fine?" she asked, with an expression of genuine concern. "Yes, just a lot of work, you know," I replied, trying to seem unconcerned. But inside, I was in pieces. Every conversation, every look, felt like a potential threat. I knew I needed to keep going, but the pressure was eating at me. At night, when I returned home, I could barely sleep. The idea that Michael might find out what we were doing kept me awake. One night, while we were reviewing the files, Jeremy called me on chat. "Emily, I found something important," he typed. "What?" I replied, my heart beating faster. "Emails from Michael to an investor. It is definitive proof of manipulation. We are almost there." That message gave me a mixed feeling of relief and dread. We were close to getting the evidence we needed, but that also meant we were closer to danger. "Jeremy, that's great, but what if they find out?" I wrote, my hand shaking slightly. "We have to be quick. Gather everything we have and prepare to act." He replied, determined. The following days were a race against time. I knew that at any moment we could be discovered. The facade of normality within the company was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Michael was more paranoid than ever, and I felt like he was one step away from figuring something out. The pressure was increasing, and the moral dilemmas wouldn't leave me alone. I was about to destroy the career of a man who, despite everything, had been an important figure in my professional life. But at the same time, I knew that exposing the truth was the right thing to do. The fraud was real, and investors deserved to know the truth. It was a dangerous game, and I was at the center of it. But with Jeremy by my side and the determination to bring justice, I knew that somehow we would find a way to reveal the truth without losing ourselves in the process. During a meeting in the legal department, I was trying to remain calm despite the internal storm I was facing. I needed to find a way to present the evidence we had collected without arousing suspicion. It was in this context that I met David, a lawyer at the company who initially seemed skeptical of my claims. "Emily, do you really think there's something here?" he asked, an eyebrow raised as he looked over the documents I had begun to present. "David, I know it's hard to believe, but the numbers don't lie. There's something very wrong going on, and we need to investigate further," I replied, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. He looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing my words. Finally, he said, "I'll check this out myself. If there's anything, I want to know." This was the beginning of a tense but productive collaboration. David began investigating the same reports that I had found suspicious, and gradually his doubts gave way to a deeper understanding of the gravity of the situation. "Emily, you were right. There are discrepancies here that cannot be ignored," he admitted in a later meeting, his tone now more serious. "I'm glad you see that, David. But we need more than just suspicions. We need hard evidence," I said, trying to stay focused despite the closeness that was beginning to form between us. As we worked together, we developed a connection that went beyond the professional. David was smart, insightful, and most of all, someone I could trust. One evening, after a long document review session, he invited me to dinner. "Emily, let's take a break. We need a rest, and I know a great place for dinner," he suggested, a gentle smile on his face. I hesitated for a moment, but ended up accepting. We needed a breather, and maybe a little normality would help us deal with the pressure. During dinner, the conversation flowed easily, and I realized how much I was beginning to depend on him, not just as a colleague but also as a friend. "David, do you think we're doing the right thing?" I asked, looking at him across the table. "Yes, Emily. We are seeking the truth, and that is always the right thing. But we need to be prepared for the consequences," he replied, holding my hand for a moment, which gave me a sense of comfort and security. This proximity, however, also complicated things. Our relationship became a mix of romance and tension, and I began to question how much I could trust him. We were dealing with sensitive and dangerous information, and David's loyalty was crucial. "David, I need to know that I can count on you, no matter what," I said, on a particularly difficult night. Emily, I'm with you. Let's expose this fraud together, he stated, his voice firm and determined. Over the next few weeks, our partnership grew stronger. David used his legal knowledge to ensure our actions were within the law, while Jeremy and I continued to collect evidence. More and more, I felt like I was on the right path, and David's presence by my side gave me the strength I needed to continue. However, the tension was palpable. I knew that at any moment we could be discovered, and the pressure of maintaining the facade of normality in the company was overwhelming. But with David by my side, I felt like I could face anything. Emily, we're going to make it. We're almost there, David said one night as we reviewed the latest reports. Yes, David. We will expose the truth, whatever the cost, I replied, feeling a wave of determination wash over me. And so, together, we continued our fight to expose corruption and seek justice, knowing that our fates were intertwined in ways we could never have predicted. Internal conflicts in the company began to intensify as soon as the first suspicions arose. I could feel the tension in every meeting, every exchange of glances. Some colleagues began to avoid me, while others watched me with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Emily, can I talk to you for a minute? Asked Sarah, one of the oldest analysts on the team. Of course, Sarah. What happened? I replied, trying to sound unconcerned. Sarah closed the door to our small meeting room and approached. I heard rumors about you investigating something against Michael. Is that true? I knew I needed to be careful. Sarah, you know I always take my job seriously. If there's something wrong, I'll find out and fix it. But for now, these are just guesses. Sarah nodded, but still looked worried. Just be careful, Emily. Michael has a lot of allies in here. Sarah's warning echoed in my mind for days. With every step I took in the investigation, I felt like I was stepping into a minefield. Some colleagues began to rally behind me, sharing information and their own suspicions about Michael. Emily, I have something for you, said Tom, one of the company's accountants, handing me a flash drive. This might help with your investigation. Thank you, Tom. Are you aware of the risk you are taking? I asked, aware of the danger we all faced. Yes, but someone needs to do something. We can't let him go through with this, Tom replied with determination. On the other hand, there were those who tried to sabotage me. Emily, I heard you're spreading rumors about Michael. Is that true? Laura, one of Michael's personal assistants, confronted me. Rumors? I don't know what you're talking about, Laura, I replied, trying to remain calm. I hope you're not trying to take Michael down. He's always been a good boss to us, Laura replied, with a challenging look on her face. I'm just doing my job, Laura. If he's innocent, he has nothing to fear, I replied, ending the conversation. These divisions began to reveal different sides of my colleagues. Some, like Sarah and Tom, were willing to risk their careers for the truth. Others, like Laura, were more concerned with maintaining their positions and the status quo. The atmosphere in the office became increasingly hostile and unpredictable. David, who initially seemed skeptical, began to move closer to me. Emily, we need to be careful. Michael has eyes and ears everywhere, he warned me during a discreet meeting in a cafe outside the office. I know, David. But we can't give up now. We have enough evidence to expose everything, I replied, feeling the pressure increasing every day. You know I'm on your side, don't you? David asked, holding my hand. I know, David. And that means a lot to me, I replied, feeling a mix of relief and concern. With each passing day, the tension increased. I knew we were approaching the turning point, but I also knew the consequences could be devastating. The internal conflicts in the company were a reflection of what was to come. We were about to expose a truth that would change everything, but at what cost? With Jeremy's help, we were able to gather overwhelming evidence of the fraud. He hacked emails, financial records, and private conversations that proved Michael Carter's manipulation. Each new piece of evidence increased my determination, but also the risk of being discovered. Tensions were at an all-time high, and we knew we needed to act quickly. I remember one particularly intense night. I was in my apartment, my heart pounding, while Jeremy was focused on his laptop at the kitchen table. The glow from the screen illuminated his face, and I could see the sweat running down his forehead. The pressure was palpable. "Emily, look at this," Jeremy said, turning the screen toward me. "Here's the proof we needed." Michael sent an email to the board of directors, inflating revenue numbers and promising impossible returns. I leaned forward, reading each word carefully. "That's perfect. But we need more. Something that connects these emails directly to the altered financial records." Jeremy nodded. "I'm working on it. Take a look at these bank statements. There are suspicious transfers to offshore accounts that exactly match the reported revenue spikes." My eyes widened. "This is gold, Jeremy. Combining this information, we have a solid case." As Jeremy continued to work in silence, I got up and started pacing around the apartment, trying to collect my thoughts. We needed a strategy to present this evidence without compromising ourselves. At any moment, we could be discovered, and if that happened, we would be in serious trouble. "Emily," Jeremy called, interrupting my thoughts. "I think I managed to access Michael's personal account. Check it out." I quickly walked over to it and looked at the screen. There they were, transfers of large sums of money, all with vague descriptions. "He's using these accounts to launder money," I whispered, hardly believing my eyes. "Exactly," Jeremy agreed. "And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are records of bribes and illegal payments. This guy is involved in something much bigger than just financial manipulation." My mind started racing. "Jeremy, we need this information saved in a safe place. If something happens to us, this evidence can't disappear." He nodded and began transferring the data to a secure server. "I'm going to encrypt everything and send copies to some trusted contacts. That way, even if they try to stop us, they won't be able to destroy all the evidence." As he worked, I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. We were close to exposing the truth, but we were also putting ourselves in great danger. I decided to call David, the legal department colleague who had become an important ally on this journey. "David, it's Emily. We have irrefutable evidence against Michael. We need to meet in person to discuss next steps." He responded quickly. "Understood, Emily. I'll meet you at our usual location in an hour." I hung up the phone and turned to Jeremy. "David is on board. Let's meet to discuss how we are going to present this evidence." Jeremy smiled, but there was concern in his eyes. "I just hope it's not too late." The meeting with David was tense. We showed him all the evidence we had gathered, and he was visibly shocked. "This is huge. Not only has Michael manipulated the financial results, he is also involved in large-scale criminal activity. We need to tread very carefully." I agreed. "We need a solid plan. We're going to get this evidence to the media, but we also need to make sure the authorities are called. Michael can't get away with this." David nodded. "I will use my contacts to make sure this gets to the right people. But we must be prepared for any retaliation." I left that meeting with a huge weight on my shoulders, but also with a renewed sense of determination. I knew we were on the right path, and that, despite the risks, exposing the truth was the only possible path. The battle was far from over, but with the tests in hand and allies at our side, we were ready to face any challenge. We decided that the best way to expose the fraud was to take the evidence to the media. The tension was palpable as Jeremy and I discussed our next steps in my small New York apartment. We were surrounded by printed documents, laptops, and notes scribbled on sheets of paper scattered across the floor. "Emily, are you sure you want to go down this path?" Jeremy asked, his blue eyes reflecting genuine concern. "This could change everything, for better or worse." "I know, Jeremy," I replied, taking a deep breath. "But we can't let Michael continue this. He's destroying the company and deceiving so many people. We need to do what's right." After a long conversation, we agreed that the best person to help would be renowned investigative journalist, Julian Martin. Julian had an impeccable reputation and a track record of exposing major corporate scandals. It was our best chance to ensure the truth was heard. We managed to arrange a meeting with Julian at a discreet cafe in the city center. I was nervous but determined. When we sat down, Julian looked at us with an expression of curiosity and seriousness. "So, you guys have something big to tell me, don't you?" he said, waving at the waiter as he ordered a black coffee. "Yes, Julian," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "We have evidence that Michael Carter, the CEO of our company, is manipulating financial results to attract investors. And that's not all. He is involved in a series of illegal activities." Julian raised an eyebrow, interested. "Evidence? What are we talking about here?" Jeremy opened his laptop and began to display the hacked emails, doctored financial records, and private conversations that incriminated Michael. With each new piece of evidence, Julian seemed more impressed. "That's huge," he muttered, taking quick notes. "I have to admit, I wasn't expecting something this big. You two are aware of the risk, right? Michael isn't going to stand by while you take him down." "We're aware," Jeremy said, looking at me. "But we have to do this. We cannot continue in silence." Julian agreed. "I'll start working on this right away. But I need you to be prepared for what comes next. This is going to be a storm." When the news was released, the repercussion was immediate. The headline plastered across every newspaper and news site was shocking: "Financial scandal, CEO Michael Carter accused of manipulation and fraud." A media storm brewed, and journalists from across the country began investigating the company. In the office, chaos ensued. Colleagues whispered in the hallways, emails flew back and forth, and the tension was intense. David, who was already suspicious of Michael, met me in the break room. "Emily, did you see the news?" he asked, his eyes wide with surprise. "Yes, David. I was the one who took the evidence to the media," I admitted, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "You're brave," he said, admiringly. "But this is going to be difficult. Michael won't let it go." "I know," I replied, determined. But it was the only right thing to do. Panic spread through the halls of the company as financial regulators and investigators began searching our files. Michael tried to maintain the facade of control, but it was clear he was quickly losing ground. That night, as Jeremy and I gathered in my apartment again, he looked at me with a mix of pride and concern. "You did something amazing today, Emily," he said. "But we need to stay alert. Michael won't accept defeat so easily." "I know," I replied, squeezing his hand. "But together, we can face whatever comes. We've done it so far, and we won't stop." The story gained a public dimension, and the pressure on everyone involved increased exponentially. But for the first time, I felt like we were on the right path. The truth was finally being revealed, and there was no going back. As our findings began to gain traction and the pressure on Michael Carter increased, he began adopting more aggressive tactics to protect himself. I already anticipated that he wouldn't back down easily, but I wasn't fully prepared for the intensity of his retaliations. One morning, when I arrived at the office, I found an email from Michael in my inbox. The subject was urgent clarifications. When I opened it, I realized that he had written a long text, trying to discredit all my allegations. "Emily, your accusations are unfounded and absurd. I have already notified the board of your inappropriate behavior and your growing dissatisfaction with the company. I hope you are aware of the consequences of your actions," the email read. My first reaction was pure shock. He was trying to paint me as a troubled, dissatisfied employee, a desperate ploy to divert attention from his own deceptions. Feeling the adrenaline rush through my body, I headed straight to Jeremy's office to discuss next steps. "Jeremy, he's trying to discredit me. I got an email earlier today. He's playing dirty," I blurted out. Jeremy, always calm and analytical, looked at me with an air of concern, but also determination. "Emily, that's to be expected. He'll try anything to save his own skin. We need to be more strategic now. The situation got worse when I started receiving anonymous threats. One night, while walking home, I noticed a car was following me. I quickened my pace, trying to hide my nervousness. When I finally got to my apartment, I got a text message, "Stop now, or you'll regret it." I showed Jeremy the message the next day. "They're threatening me, Jeremy. This is getting too dangerous." He frowned, clearly worried. "We need to increase our security. I will reinforce our protocols and make sure we have backups of all evidence. We can't let them scare us." Meanwhile, Michael Carter intensified his smear campaign. He started spreading rumors around the office, suggesting that I was forging evidence to get a promotion or even that I had personal problems and was taking it out on the company. Some colleagues started to look at me differently, and the tension in the work environment became unbearable. David, who had become a crucial support figure, was also worried. "Emily, I know it's difficult, but we can't let him get away with it. We need to keep fighting," he said, trying to give me strength. "I know, David. It's just that it's getting more and more complicated. The threats, the rumors. Everything is against us," I replied, trying not to let my despair show. But, even in the face of all these adversities, my determination did not waver. I knew that the truth was on our side and that, in the end, justice would prevail. Jeremy and I stepped up our efforts, ensuring all evidence was secure and ready to be presented. Michael Carter's retaliation, while intense and frightening, only reinforced the gravity of his actions. He was desperate, and that meant we were on the right path. With each step we took, the closer we got to exposing all the corruption and ensuring he faced the consequences of his actions. This experience taught me a lot about resilience and courage. Even in the face of the greatest adversity, truth and justice are powerful forces. And with allies like Jeremy and David by my side, I knew we could win this battle. As the investigation gained momentum, a new piece of the puzzle appeared before me, something so devastating that it could completely change the course of things. On one of these sleepless nights, as I was reviewing the evidence collected again, I noticed a sequence of transactions that made no sense at all. I decided to follow this trail and, with Jeremy's help, we were able to decipher an even more complex network of criminal activity. "Emily, you won't believe what I found," Jeremy said, his voice sounding anxious on the other end. "What is it now, Jeremy?" I asked, trying to contain my frustration and tiredness. "Michael Carter is not just manipulating the financial results. He is involved in money laundering and bribery. I found a series of emails and bank records that prove this." Jeremy's words echoed in my mind like an alarm. If before I was determined to expose the fraud, now I had in my hands a bomb that could explode the entire criminal structure that Michael had set up. "This is serious, Jeremy. We need to act fast," I replied, my heart racing with the magnitude of the discovery. With this new information, we knew authorities needed to be involved. However, we had to be extremely careful. Any false move could alert Michael and he could destroy all the evidence before we could hand it over. I scheduled an urgent meeting with David. When I met him at the cafe near his office, I noticed the concern on his face. "David, I have something big. Michael is involved in money laundering and bribery," he said bluntly. He widened his eyes, clearly shocked. "Emily, are you sure about this? This is even more serious than we imagined." "I have proof, David. Jeremy found emails, bank transactions, and everything is documented. We need to take this to the authorities right now." David agreed, and together we came up with a plan to attract the attention of law enforcement agencies. We contacted an FBI agent who, after reviewing preliminary evidence, decided to launch a formal investigation. The pressure on Michael began to increase exponentially. He realized the net was closing around him and tried desperately to cover his tracks. But it was already too late. One busy night, I received a call from the FBI agent. "Emily, this is Agent Collins. We have news. Michael Carter tried to flee the country this afternoon, but we managed to capture him at the airport." The news brought a mixture of relief and justice. Michael Carter was finally being held accountable for his actions. I knew the fight wasn't over yet, but this was a huge step in the right direction. The next day, Michael's arrest made headlines all over the news. The full revelation of his actions not only exposed his corruption, but also cleared Jeremy's and my names. The company, now under new management, began to restructure itself and adopt strict compliance measures. I received an invitation to a meeting with the company's new CEO. Upon entering the meeting room, I was greeted with applause and smiles of approval. "Emily, you have shown extraordinary courage and integrity. We want you to assume a leadership position in the new administration," said the CEO, extending his hand to me. I gratefully accepted the offer. My journey there had been arduous, but I was finally seeing the fruits of my efforts. Jeremy, for his part, was able to leave his dark past behind and found a new career as a cybersecurity consultant. As I reflected on the entire journey, I realized that not only did we expose corruption, but we also redefined our personal and professional futures. We emerged stronger and more respected from this journey, ready to face any challenge that came next. Finally, the truth came out in a way I never could have imagined. Michael Carter, in a last act of desperation, tried to flee the country. News of your escape attempt reached me through a call from Jeremy. "Emily, you won't believe it. Michael Carter is at the airport, trying to catch a flight to a country without an extradition treaty," Jeremy exclaimed, his voice thick with urgency. "Are you sure about this, Jeremy? We need to act fast," I replied, feeling a mix of adrenaline and anxiety. "Absolutely. I've already informed the authorities. They're on their way to intercept him," assured Jeremy. I waited with my heart in my hand, every second seemed like an eternity. Finally, confirmation arrived: Michael Carter had been captured by authorities at the airport. The feeling of relief and justice was indescribable. Seeing this man, who had manipulated so many lives and careers, being taken away in handcuffs was a moment of revenge and triumph. News of Michael Carter's arrest spread quickly. The media, which was already paying attention to our story, covered every detail. The image of Michael being escorted by agents made headlines in all the newspapers and news. The fall of such a powerful and charismatic man was shocking, but at the same time, it brought a feeling that justice had been done. Meanwhile, the full disclosure of his actions has not only exposed his corruption, but also cleared my and Jeremy's names. The evidence we had gathered and turned over to authorities showed indisputably that Michael was involved not only in manipulating the company's financial results, but also in more serious criminal activities such as money laundering and bribery. "Emily, you did an incredible job. Without your determination, none of this would have been possible," David said, hugging me tightly. "Your constant presence and support were fundamental throughout this process." "I didn't do this alone, David. Jeremy was essential in getting the evidence," I replied, feeling a huge weight being lifted from my shoulders. Subsequently, the company underwent a complete restructuring. New management was established and, to my surprise, I was promoted to a leadership position. The trust they placed in me was a recognition of my courage and determination to expose the truth, even in the face of so many risks and adversities. "Emily, you deserve this promotion. The company needs leaders like you who value transparency and integrity," said the new CEO during the induction ceremony. "Thank you. I promise that I will continue working with these values in mind," I replied, excited and grateful for the opportunity. Jeremy, in turn, also found a new path. With his brilliant cybersecurity mind, he managed to leave his dark past behind and was hired as a cybersecurity consultant by a renowned company. "Jeremy, I'm so happy for you. You deserve this chance," I said, hugging my childhood friend. "Thank you, Emily. We did it. Together, we changed our destinies," he replied, with a sincere smile on his face. At the end of this tumultuous journey, we not only exposed Michael Carter's corruption, but we also redefined our personal and professional futures. We emerged stronger and more respected, with the certainty that, even in the face of the greatest adversity, truth and justice prevail.